Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Elysian Fields chapter meeting and SABR's Can't Miss event of the week. I'm Donna Muscarella, Elysian Fields chapter president. Our guest tonight is Ralph Carhart. Ralph is the author of The Hall Ball, One Fan's Journey to Unite Cooperstown Immortals with a Single Baseball. He received the Chairman's Award from SABR's 19th Century Research Committee in 2015 and the 2019 Hilda Award from the Baseball Reliquary. Ralph's research has appeared in the New York Times, on CBS Evening News, and on History This Week, the flagship podcast of the History Channel. He was the editor of SABR's 2022 release, Not an Easy Tale to Tell, Jackie Robinson on the Page, Stage, and Screen, and is the contributor of 6 entries in SABR's epic bio project, including the biography of Rachel Robinson. The production manager for the Queens College Department of Drama, Theater, and Dance since 2007, Ralph has shepherded over 100 productions on QC stages in that time. He's also a playwright. His latest work, The Invaders, a Freedom Summer Play, had its world premiere reading in June 2024. It tells the story of the 1964 Mississippi Summer Project and the murders of 3 activists by the Ku Klux Klan, including Queens College student Andrew Goodman. Ralph is a noted baseball historian and a wonderful storyteller. Sit back, relax, and enjoy Ralph's presentation, The Incubator of Baseball.
Thank you, Donna, very, very much. There's people in this room right now who know I stole the title, but I'll give credit once I begin speaking. All right, here, let me share my well-designed PowerPoint. Great, here we go. All right. So it's likely that most of the people in this Zoom know that the creation myth of baseball, the story of its pastoral birth in an isolated hamlet in upstate New York, has as much truth to it as a Gaylord Perry curveball. No, baseball was not born in the pastures of Cooperstown, but in the narrow lots that still existed in the burgeoning metropolis of Manhattan at the middle of the 19th century. It's also likely that most of the people in this on this Zoom know that the development of baseball was not contained to those lots, which I think of as the birthing rooms of the game, for very long. The game needed space to give an outfielder a chance to run for that long fly once they figured out how to wind a ball tight enough that it might travel that far. Space to spread the bases far enough apart to create a challenge for the runner and to stop breaking expensive windows. So the game spread to the more roomy confines of New Jersey. It was there, first on Elysian Fields, but then throughout the Garden State, where baseball evolved past its nascent first steps and truly became America's pastime. My friend John Zinn refers to New Jersey as the incubator of baseball, and I can think of no more descriptive word. In the pre-pro database, part of the Protoball website, which catalogs the clubs and matches that happened before baseball became a professional enterprise in 1870, there are 2,472 entries for New Jersey, second only to New York. Jersey is where the game went from a privilege of the upper-class merchants, firemen, lawyers, and doctors whose social clubs spawned the sport, to a game enjoyed by men and women, rich and poor, black and white. The nearness of Jersey to New York made it appealing to more than baseball fanatics, and Colonel John Stevens saw its potential. He moved his family from their Manhattan home to Hoboken in 1814. With an eye on the riches that would come from operating a steamship service connecting the two. But Stevens's vision was not limited to the practical. He was one of those forward thinkers who was there at the birth of the nation. He was a patriot who served as the treasurer of New Jersey during the Revolutionary War. He'd seen the country grow from its humble and violent beginnings, and he recognized that by 1830, Americans were ready for the next stage of their development, leisure. The result was Elysian Fields, a playground for all, from the lowliest scullery maid to John Jacob Astor. Elysian Fields featured a Ferris wheel, a merry-go-round, a camera obscura, and a flying machine. It also featured enough open space that when the Knickerbockers and other clubs started to feel the squeeze of the ever-expanding city, they quickly found a home in Stevens's paradise. What followed at Elysian Fields was nearly a half-century of baseball, nearly the entire period of its development from amateur game to its evolution into the modern incarnation, which historians tend to date the starting point of as 1901, the birth year of the American League. But New Jersey's role in that evolution is not confined to a single amusement park in Hoboken. New Jersey is embedded in the fabric of baseball. It's in the flesh and bone of not just the 480 men who were born in New Jersey and were fortunate enough to play in the major leagues. Bonus points at the end for anyone who can name the 4 who are in the Hall of Fame. But in the tens of thousands of New Jerseyans who played the game for Rutgers and Montclair, for high schools like DePaul and Lakeland and East High. It's in the countless children who played under the watchful eye of Negro League's legend Pop Lloyd, a man who had a stadium in Atlantic City named after him just 2 years after Jackie Robinson started his historic work in Brooklyn. It's in beer leagues and company leagues and in vintage leagues, where you can still watch people play baseball by the same rules as those folks who played at Elysian Fields, oh so long ago. It's not just the people who contribute to the story. There's also the places, like Jersey City, where Robinson made history playing the first game of his minor league season. There's Camden, near enough to Philadelphia that it was the city of brotherly love's own version of Hoboken, where eager 19th century players would catch the ferry to escape Philly's burdensome blue laws and play on Sunday. And there's Patterson, where a nearly century-old jewel has been brought back from the precipice and sprung to new life, incubating a whole new generation of ball players. Here in New Jersey, the story of baseball is even in the air we breathe and in the earth upon which we stand. It was in New Jersey, in Newark, where a radio broadcast traveled the airwaves and first brought the World Series to the world, or at least anyone within 100 miles of the station, in 1921. And it was from a New Jersey-Delaware River basin that Lena Blackburn first realized that the mud beneath his boat was just the thing to rub into a baseball, dulling the slick surface and giving pitchers a better grip. Blackburn's mud is still used by Major League Baseball today on every baseball they put into play. So, in honor of New Jersey's outsized role in the game, I thought I would share a few of my favorite New Jersey-related baseball stories. I was asked to try and make baseball cards a part of this presentation, so I'm going to get the ball rolling with a baseball card story that at the center of which lies the question, what do this nature preserve and the famed T206 baseball cards have in common? Our tale begins, unpredictably enough, in Durham, North Carolina, where James Buchanan Duke is born 2 days before Christmas in 1856. Coincidentally, during that time, for many ball clubs, Christmas was traditionally the last game of the year. Mr. Duke made money the old-fashioned way. He inherited a tobacco fortune from a father who was a Confederate naval officer and then used his considerable privilege to crush everyone who stood in his way. In 1885, he acquired a license to use the first cigarette rolling machine, and by 1890, he owned 90% of the cigarette market in the United States. His monopoly was so vast that the Supreme Court ultimately had to step in and break up his company into several smaller companies. Beginning in 1990 and lasting until 1911, Duke's American Tobacco Company produced the T206 baseball card set. It has become an iconic set in the hobby for reasons both aesthetic and commercial. The set is called the Monster because the checklist contains 524 cards, an unbelievably massive set for the era, but also because the monopoly of American tobacco was so vast, 16 different cigarette brands issued the cards as inserts in their products, each of them touting their specific product on the back. If a collector considers each one of those backs a unique card, the set could contain as many as 8,384 cards, although we currently do not have a surviving example of every card. Currently. It is, of course, the set which provided us with the famed Honus Wagner card. The tale of that card, particularly the one that was once owned by hockey star Wayne Gretzky, is a long and twisted. I could spend hours alone discussing the ways that the baseball card industry has largely been manufactured on the back of that one single card. Instead, I'll bring us back to the lovely Duke Farms, which can be found in Hillsborough, New Jersey. Starting in 1893, Duke bought roughly 3,000 acres of New Jersey woodland, upon which he built an estate that contained 45 buildings, 9 lakes, 465 acres of bird habitat, and 1.5 miles of stone walls. When he died in 1925, his only child, daughter Doris Duke, became the richest girl in America. Doris's mother attempted to sell the estate, and 14-year-old Doris sued her mother and won. Perhaps America's most famous philanthropist in her day, she kept the land her whole life, and today it serves as a nature preserve in the heart of the Doris Duke Foundation, which has given countless millions towards the performing arts, medical research, the environment, and childhood well-being. In 2024, they awarded nearly $20 million in grants, or enough to buy 2 Gretzky Wagners and a PSA 9 52 mantle. Speaking of the famed 52 mantle, most of us probably know the story that Cy Berger, the mastermind behind the modern-day trading cards, decided at one point to take all of his excess Topps 1950s inventory out to sea and dump it into the ocean, making space in his full-to-bursting warehouse and fueling countless dreams of what might have been for future collectors. What you may not know is that, according to Berger himself, the boat that took those untold millions of dollars out to their watery grave left from Atlantic Highlands, New Jersey, and were dumped just a mile or two out to sea. If that's true, this trove, including Mantle's famous non-rookie card, was deposited in the Sandy Hook Bay. I mentioned another coastal town earlier that you may have heard of, Atlantic City. Atlantic City became the adopted home of Henry Pop Lloyd, a run-producing machine who could bunt, steal bases, and field shortstop with a Hall of Fame ease. He played for over a dozen teams in the often tumultuous Negro Leagues, including for the Atlantic City Backrocks, the Eastern Colored League. A stadium was named in his honor in 1949 with the aid of a shrewd local politician and a friend of Lloyd's named Hap Farley, who knew that if he could secure the black vote, his Senate campaign would be a lock. It didn't hurt that Farley owned the construction company that won the bid. But Lloyd is not the only black ball player who etched his name in Atlantic City history. Most of you think you know who pitched the first no-hitter in World Series history, Don Larson's perfect game in 1956. But you would be wrong. The first no-hitter pitched in World Series history took place 3 decades earlier, on October 3rd, 1926. It was that day that backrock hurler Claude Red Greer faced the Chicago American Giants in the 3rd game of the Colored World Series played in Baltimore at the Maryland Baseball Park. Greer had been knocked out of the game in the 2nd inning the day before, giving up 5 hits, a walk, a hit batsman, and surrendering 7 runs in his brief stint. What he brought to the ballpark the next day made the record books. The Color World Series was often played in a host city representing neither of the teams if club owners thought they could make a little extra on a marquee event like the series. It was an unusually hot day in Baltimore, reaching 86 degrees. The game was not particularly well attended as families chose different ways to spend an unexpected summer day in October. It's unfortunate because they missed witnessing a historic example of a pitcher battling his way to excellence. Greer walked 6 batters, and 2 more reached base on errors, but none crossed the plate, and after 9 innings, none had gotten a hit. The Backrocks won a decisive 10-0 victory and evened the series at 1 game apiece. Game 1 had been a tie. From the foundational year that current historians pinpoint as the season the Negro Leagues became major, that of 1920, Greer's historic victory was only the 10th no-hitter in Negro Leagues history. Remarkably, the Backracs repeated the feat the following year, this time in Atlantic City. Pitcher Luther Farrell threw 7 innings of no-hit ball in Game 5 of the Colored World Series, a game that was shortened by the darkness of an approaching storm. Unfortunately, neither Greer's nor Farrell's dominating victories translated to the championship. The Backracs lost the series. New Jersey's role in black baseball actually goes back much farther than the 1920s. To the great shame of the sport, Jersey has an unfortunate place in the story of the infamous color line. Prior to 1887, it was not unheard of for black ball players and white ball players to appear on the same team. Early black pioneers like Bud Fowler and Saul White played on integrated teams. Newark had such a team in 1887 as part of the International League, the Little Giants, whose roster featured the famed Moses Fleetwood Walker, as well as George Stovey, perhaps the finest black pitcher of the era. The Little Giants were scheduled to play an exhibition game against the Chicago White Sox, led by Cap Anson. As many of you know, Anson and Walker had tangled before, first in 1883 when Walker was playing for the integrated Toledo Blue Stockings. Walker played in that game against the vehement and profane protests of Anson, who only relented because he didn't want to lose the game via forfeit and thus all the box office receipts. Anson swore he would never play against another black ball player, and he kept his word. When Toledo and Chicago met the next year, this time in an official league game, as the Blue Stockings had been elevated to major league status that year, Walker sat on the bench. The same thing happened in 1887 when Walker and Stovey were playing for Newark. Newark manager Charles Hackett later told reporters that he did not pitch superstar Stovey because he was not feeling well. Hackett gave no explanation as to why Walker didn't. It likely had something to do with the telegram Hackett received from Anson prior to the game saying that if Stovey took the mound, his team would walk off the field. Later that same day in Buffalo, International League executives passed a resolution to no longer approve the contracts of black ball players. Upon the insistence of several clubs, including the one in Jersey City, who claimed that African players drove white men from the league, blacks were effectively banned from white baseball for almost another 60 years. In one of those fabulous twists of fate that the story of baseball loves to give us, it was that same Jersey City which complained so loudly in 1887 that served as the home of one of the finest moments in American history. For before Jackie Robinson integrated the Dodgers in 1947, he had to spend a year in the minors, honing both his skills as a ball player — baseball was likely Robinson's weakest sport — and his ability to withstand the pressures of the weight that was going to come with his historic role. It also helped that the Dodgers AAA team was located in Montreal, where Canadian manners helped insulate the Robinsons from the hatred they were ultimately going to receive in the United States. The Montreal Royals played the first game of their 1946 season against the Jersey City Giants. Robinson led the charge in a 14-1 rout of the Giants, collecting 4 hits, 4 RBIs, 4 runs scored, 2 stolen bases, and clubbing a 3-run home run. Jackie Robinson had arrived with a thunderclap, and his play that day gave New Jersey the unusual distinction of being both one of the last places to host a game featuring an integrated professional team and one of the first. New Jersey has a rich minor league history for 2 reasons. Its proximity to both New York City and Philadelphia has made it a convenient spot for the 2 to 5 major league clubs those cities have hosted over the years to stash a prize prospect or recuperating injured star that a team might need to bring up to the big league on short notice. It is, of course, that same reason why, despite its deep minor league history, Jersey is incapable of supporting a major league team. There's just too much competition. But there was one brief shining moment in which New Jersey was in when New Jersey was a major league. In 1914, there was a revolt in Major League Baseball. After 13 years of monopolistic rule by the American and National Leagues, a new league known as the Federal League came into existence. Born from an earlier minor league, the Federal League challenged the national agreement put in place by its predecessors. They rated teams for players, established teams in cities that already had major league clubs, and were a general nuisance to the powers that be. The Federal League was always on shaky financial ground, and in 1915, in an attempt to improve their financial fortunes, the Indianapolis Hoosiers moved their home to Newark and became the Newark Pepper. The Pepper were a solid squad. They finished in 5th place, but they won 80 out of 155 games, and they only finished 6 games behind eventual league champions, the Chicago Whales, who were playing in their fancy new ballpark at Addison and Russell that season. 2 future Hall of Famers played for Newark that year, Bill McKechnie and Ed Rausch, who as a 20-year-old in 1913 had a total of 9 major league games under his belt and was one of the first to jump ship to the new Federal League. The Pepper were also on the losing end of a historic game. On September 11th, 1915, future Hall of Famer Eddie Plank won his 300th game when his St. Louis Terriers defeated the Pepper 12-5. It was the first time in Major League history that a left-handed pitcher won 300 games, though it would take Major League Baseball another 50 years to officially recognize that fact. The Federal League folded at the end of the 1915 season, unable to finance both the league and their last-ditch legal effort court case challenging the Baseball Trust, which had been stymied by a recalcitrant Judge Kennesaw Mountain Landis, who did not want to see his beloved baseball tampered. His inaction on the Federal League lawsuit has made it possible for baseball to still largely skirt antitrust laws to this day. The monopoly not only remains unbroken, but with the new minor league system implemented a few years ago, continues to expand. I mentioned at the beginning that there were 4 Hall of Famers who were born in New Jersey. They were Derek Jeter, Goose Goslin, Ducky Medwick, and Billy Hamilton. Now, who is going to be the 5th? Anyone want to guess? Go ahead, you can shout out. Peggy, you muted them already. It's going to be Trout. Trout will be 5th. But there are several other Hall of Famers who are adopted children of the Garden State, including Yogi Berra and Phil Rizzuto, who lived in Montclair and Hillside, respectively, just 20 minutes apart, and the two would visit each other frequently. Yogi was, of course, famous for his yogiisms, most of which he never actually said. One of them was really his, though. When you come to a fork in the road, take it. The famous fork is a real place in Montclair. Yogi's house was located on a circle, so it didn't matter whether you took the left or the right from the access road, you were going to get there. There are lesser-known names as well, like Ed Sylvester Nolan, who was born in Ontario but moved to Patterson as a child. Nolan played alongside the likes of King Kelly for the Patterson Keystones when he was just a 16-year-old boy. Nolan had a middling major league career, but he had one of the all-time great baseball nicknames, the Only Nolan. The reasons for that sobriquet constitute a story that is too long to tell today, but just to show you what an untamed land the world was back then, it was rooted in minstrelsy. Perhaps Jersey's most important adopted son ever is Larry Doby. He is, of course, the man who integrated the Cleveland Ball Club the first time a black ball player appeared on an American League team. His talent paid immediate dividends when he and Satchel Paige helped bring Cleveland their second and currently last World Series title. Before he signed with Cleveland, he spent 4.5 seasons playing for the famed Newark Eagles, where in 1946, freshly returned home from military service, Doby led the Negro National League in hits, triples, total bases, and OPS, guiding the Eagles toward their lone championship. Doby was discovered by Eagles owners Abe and Effa Manley at Hinchliffe Stadium on the recommendation of Henry Moore, a Negro Leagues umpire. That story is printed everywhere on the internet, and I decided to dig a little deeper into who Moore was. I believe I've learned that he was actually an umpire He was the owner of the Birmingham Black, before he was an umpire, he was the owner of the Birmingham Black Barons. He lost control of the club in 1938 when he organized a second East-West All-Star game without the league sanction. And that game was just across the river at the Polo Grounds. Now, despite the fact that Dobie's Hinchliffe audition resulted in a Hall of Fame baseball career, it is possible that was not the most memorable day Dobie had at Hinchliffe. That may be the 1941 football game in which Dobie's Eastside High faced their rival Central in the annual Thanksgiving battle. That day, Dobie, the team's backfield superstar, scored 2 touchdowns, returned a kickoff for 32 yards, took a snap at quarterback that set up another touchdown, and for good measure, he kicked an extra point. The final result was a punishing 45-6 defeat of Dobie's crosstown rivals. All right, but enough about football. Let's get back to baseball and one final story about the important role that jersey has played in our beloved game. In fact, our final story brings us back to Hoboken, where we began, and serves as a reminder that for all the time that we historians and baseball nerds spend talking about those giant names from the past, the Larry Dobies, the Yogi Berras, even the Pop Lloyds, baseball is for us mere mortals as well. Our final story takes place in 1972, fine year for a baseball writer, lecturer, and purveyor of baseball cards to be born, if I do say so myself. The location is an unassuming Little League field where Coach Jimmy Farina began that season as the head of the Young Democrats Club by putting out his new star player, Maria Pett. Little League Baseball had determined in 1951 that girls were not allowed to play. It was too risky. One hysterical claim made by the organization was that if a girl got hit in the chest with a ball, she could get breast cancer. Farina challenged that rule and got away with it for 3 games. Then Williamsport got wind of what he was up to and gave him an ultimatum. Pep needed to be cut from the team, or the entire city of Newark was going to lose its Little League charter. Farina was willing to challenge them, but Pep did not want her friends to be unable to play, so she left the team. The league asked for her uniform back. Farina let her keep that. However, just 2 months later, Title IX was passed, and it became a whole new ballgame for girl and women athletes. With the help of the National Organization of Women, Maria and her parents sued Little League, and after a year-long court battle, they won. The New Jersey Little League was forced to allow girls to play, and by 1974, the league had amended its national charter. It was too late for Maria. She had aged out. But since that time, 10 million girls have played Little League Baseball. Maria is still in Hoboken. She is the city's assistant comptroller. Jimmy Farina is still active with the Hoboken Little League, where he has served as president for the last 20 years. Pep and Farina are little-known names to most people, but it is fitting that their story takes place in the town where Stevens built his Elysian paradise. New Jersey has always been the home of baseball dreams and legends, a place that exists in the shadow of the 2 major baseball metropolises that bookend it. But from those shadows, history has sprung forth time and again to remind us that baseball does not simply belong to the 30 teams who dominate so much of the chatter on ESPN. Baseball is everywhere, and it is for all of us. It's my presentation.
Thank you very much. Some of you may have read that presentation was originally given at the Muth Museum at Hinchliffe Stadium, preceding a baseball card show that our chapter conducted in conjunction with the Muth Museum as a fundraiser for the museum. It was a standing room only event in their theater at 9 a.m. on a Saturday morning. The museum director, Jessica Cameron Bush, was extremely impressed by the turnout. And based on the quality of that presentation, it's no surprise that many people came out to see Ralph.
Thank you, Donna. You're very sweet.
It's the truth. So at this time, we'll open up the floor for questions. If you have one and feel comfortable asking it on camera, please go ahead and go down to that react button on the bottom of your screen and raise your hand. If you don't feel comfortable asking on camera, feel free to throw it in the comments and I will happily read it for you. Douglas Rubin, good evening, and you're up.
That was wonderful.
Thank
I've
you.
grown up in New Jersey. So the interesting thing is, even back before the independent leagues, minor league teams were not in New Jersey. They were mostly in, Johnstown, New York, and Batavia, and then I guess it was Auburn or somewhere up in Newton. Anyway, Trenton. I lived down near Trenton. Um,
Mhm.
So, and now we have a lot, too many minor league teams.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, I'd love, you to talk about like the minor league, rise and fall or fall and rise. I mean, obviously, there was a, minor league team in Trenton where Willie Mays played, et cetera.
Mhm.
Anyway, anything you want to add about sort of where minor league teams didn't exist for a long time in New Jersey and now, anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting if you there's probably a whole paper in looking at the rise and fall of minor league teams in New Jersey and the way minor league baseball has been approached throughout its own history, right? And the way Major League Baseball has used it. Again, because you've got New York and Philadelphia and the importance of those two cities. I mean, if you throw in, if you look at the 1920s, like let's use that 1920s, 1930s period, if you throw in, now the Negro League teams, which count, I mean, there's like 10 professional teams between New York and Philadelphia going on, right? So it's interesting, that yeah, there was a paucity because it was, all the players were going there, right? But now the economics of it have evolved. There's not as many teams, now we basically have three. So you've seen that minor league, that thirst for the game to be filled by those minor league teams that have evolved since then. So yeah, you're right. And it's, I'm sure there's a whole paper to be written in looking at the math on that.
Alec, you're up, my friend.
Thank you. Great presentation. I do need to ask you, because I'm also a lover of theater and baseball, that I want to ask you what your favorite baseball player musical is.
Ooh.
Favorite baseball player musical. I mean, it's hard to beat Damn Yankees.
Right.
I had a fun experience with Damn Yankees because we did it out at Queens College, and one of the alumnus of Queens College is Howie Rose, the radio announcer for the New York Mets. So there's in the play, there's two moments in the play where Joe Hardy is up to bat, and you hear a baseball broadcaster, on loudspeaker. And we actually got Howie Rose to record those lines for us. So it was extra fun for all of the Mets fans in the audience because we had an actual major league broadcaster saying the lines from the play. Musical, I guess, would have to be Damn Yankees for sure.
Cool.
Ralph, do you have those recordings?
I have them somewhere at work, I'm sure. Of course, I didn't get rid of those.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
you should someday. I mean, this would be kind of goofy, but at the same time, make it your ringtone on your phone. That could be kind of fun. Just have Howie Rose's voice come out. He, by the way, I don't know for how long this has been the tradition. He was the on-field announcer for opening day as well, which was kind of cool this year.
Cool.
I mean,
he's been doing that for a while.
Yeah, this was my first year doing opening day at Citi Field, so I got to experience a bit of different stuff, which was an absolute blast. I had a fantastic time.
He's the voice of the Mets now. And his daughter was one of our students, actually. His daughter was a drama major. So
oh, cool.
That helped convince him too. Alec wrote about the Tony Stone play. Yeah, the Tony Stone play is brilliant. If you want to talk about straight plays, the list is much longer for me. And the Tony Stone one was absolutely genius. It gives such incredible insight into her and who she was as a person. Like, it brought her to life in such an incredible way. I really loved that show. That was a really good one.
I hope it comes back.
Yeah,
Or,
I believe it is streamable. It was for a little while. You could stream it online.
Okay.
So if you wanted to look for it,
Yeah, I will look for that for sure.
Yeah.
Perry Barber.
Hey, hi, Ralph.
Hi, Perry.
Like the whiskers.
Thanks. It's I'm on sabbatical right now. I have the half a year off from the college, so I'm calling it my sabbata beard. Letting it grow in for a few months. I'll get rid of it when the summer comes.
Well, I just wanted to compliment you on your way with the word, and there you did it again. At the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned that a certain class of women would gravitate to the ballpark. So from now on, I'm going to think of myself as a lonely scullery maid every time I go to the ballpark and be a kindred spirit with my predecessors.
I would have gotten along with the scullery maids much more than the John Jacob Astors.
Well, I'm not going to dress up like one. Just think of myself as
Fair enough.
Also, just briefly wanted to point out that your presentation was so good because, I, like a lot of people, think I know a lot of stuff about baseball in New York and New Jersey, but I definitely learned some stuff from you. And one of the reasons that I am particularly interested in New Jersey baseball, other than Effa Manley and Larry Doby, well-known people like that, is that I spent 4 years umpiring in the Atlantic League back in the late 1990s, early 2000s. And they had two teams there that I just loved working at, the ballpark in Newark and the ballpark in Somerset, New Jersey, that sold out, and I think still sells out every night. The fans just love their Somerset Patriots.
Yeah, I'm very close to the Somerset Stadium. I look
and that was just one of the most fun gigs I ever did as an umpire. So I'm a big New Jersey baseball fan. So thank you for doing this. Very much appreciate it.
I love it.
I'm going to take this opportunity, since Perry brought up the Somerset Patriots, to just plug. We've got a chapter group outing there on June 14th. I did purchase a few extra tickets for that game because I had a feeling there might be some latecomers. So if anybody has not purchased their ticket yet and is interested in going, the Patriots are doing a special program for us, something that they've never done before. At my request, they are giving us a pregame tour of the ballpark, and they are also doing a presentation about the development of their alternate identities, the New York Black Yankees, the Jersey Diners, the Zorros. So they're going to do all that for us, and then we're going to have a pregame barbecue that does include vegetarian options, to my best of my understanding, and then we're going to watch the game, and then there's fireworks after. So it's going to be a really fun night. It's $38 a person. I've already put out the money for it, but if you reach out to me, I can let you know. And we're all going to be sitting together in the barbecue pavilion. I think it's going to be a great night. And if you haven't signed up yet, get in touch because there's just a few tickets left.
What's the date, Donna?
June 14th. It's a Saturday. Our tentative start time is 5 o'clock. I say tentative because, as I said, the team's never done a program like this before, and we set the date back last fall, and they are still kind of developing exactly what they're going to do for us. So we'll finalize that time as we get closer, but the date is firm, June 14th. So just shoot me an email if you're interested. The lens of Donna M at gmail.com. I'm in the SABR directory, whatever. Craig.
Great job again, Ralph, with the presentation.
Thank you.
I do want to say that there is Bull Durham, the musical, is coming to Paper Mill Playhouse.
I saw that, actually.
I don't think that's going to be knocking Dan Yankees off your list, but
I am intrigued. I'm intrigued, especially because he adapted it, right? The original creator, Bull Durham, Shelton,
Yeah.
He's the one who actually adapted it. It's his project. So
I
I'm a
don't know
little
what the
curious
name.
because it's his.
Yeah. But I'm pretty interested in the Newark. I always thought of them as the Newark Peppers. You say Newark Pepper singular. So is that how they were?
I think it's Peppers. I think well, no, it's Pepper. The team was the Pepper, I think.
The Pepper singular.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've only seen.
Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm fairly certain it's.
Well, I've only seen usually like a big N as their logo, so
Yeah.
it wasn't like they were writing Peppers. And a lot of those Federal League teams would just be the Buff Feds or whatever.
Right.
So who knows what they were actually called? But
yeah.
But that's great. Great job with the presentation. I really liked it. Hearing it again.
Thank you.
No, once again, we've got somebody mentioning something that I wanted to throw out there as an idea. If anybody is interested in, maybe I'll put this out in an email too, in maybe doing a group outing to the paper mill to see Bull Durham, I'd be happy to coordinate that. So just keep it in your head. Any other questions?
Hey Donna, this is Steve. I don't know how to
Steve.
I don't know how to raise my hand.
That's okay.
I had a question for Ralph. Ralph, I know that I think it was for one season, the Yankees did spring training in Asbury Park, and this was like the Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig Yankees.
Yeah.
And it always struck me as just extraordinarily random because anybody knows the geography. I mean, Newark is, the other side of the tunnel from New York City. Asbury Park's like an hour and 20 minutes from New York City.
Closer to the beach, though, it makes it feel more like spring training.
That's true. Yeah. I just don't know anything about the circumstances.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure why they were there that year. There's always that's a fun topic to look at too, is spring training, and you always see like these hiccup years where a team is played somewhere for a year or two where they normally don't. You wonder what the politics were behind that shift that year that brought them there.
Yeah, I wonder if there's like a fire or something. Something was damaged or something.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It's just really bizarre to me that they ended up in Asbury of all places.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It could be something that, right? We had the the Buffalo Bisons were in Trenton while the Blue Jays were in Buffalo during COVID.
Yes.
Right. I mean, we know there wasn't COVID in Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig's days, but it could be something weird and odd and random like that too. Who knows?
Yeah, we had the Spanish flu back in Lou's day.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. Yeah, Alex says now we have major league teams in minor league park. Oh, yeah, right. I mean, yeah, it's for different reasons, but yes, very, very true. I need playoff baseball in a minor league park. Well, that could be interesting. I wonder if it got to that point, would they move the games?
Well, the Dodgers played a couple of games in Jersey City in '56 because they weren't getting the attendance in Brooklyn. That was, if you read
that was a power play.
Yeah, well,
yeah. But in 2025, are they going to allow such minimum attendance where they jack the prices so much on the tickets? I mean, I wonder what would happen. I mean, I don't know that it's likely that the Rays are going to make the postseason. No disrespect to the Rays fans.
I mean, I think, when you see things like the Field of Dreams game and stuff like that, I think that, they have the ability to wheel in a spare 1,500 seats if they need. Like if there's a way they can find a way to make it marketable, they might try that. Yes. Yeah. I don't know. In 5 years, it's all going to look like Banana Ball anyway.
Oh,
because
that's a whole other.
Savannah Bananas are selling way more tickets than Major League Baseball right now.
So. I think they added another team this year. I think I saw the
They've got 4.
An opponent.
Yeah.
They're actually developing a Banana Ball league that is supposed to debut next year. Apparently, there's 6 teams, the 4 that they have now and 2 that they're developing. And they're going to operate this as a stat-driven, legitimate form of baseball league.
I'm
Bruce, I
curious
think
to
it
see
turns,
them meld that together.
Yeah.
I mean, for
you
a
know,
theater guy, everyone knows that the guy who founded the Bananas is a theater major, right?
yep,
He,
yeah,
he was
yeah.
a theater
Yeah.
guy who was
Yeah.
looking for a way to meld his loves. I
Makes
actually
sense.
love the Bananas. I think it's great. Anything that makes people want to watch. Like
Right,
the
yeah.
whole point of my presentation was that Major League Baseball doesn't own the sport. If someone is coming along and finding a way to, WWF this thing and make people want turn it into that, then great. At least it's got people caring about baseball.
Yeah.
I'm
There
happy
you
with
go.
that.
Yeah. Well, we'll have the women's league next year too, although they
thanks.
haven't announced, right? They haven't announced yet where those teams are, but we'll have the women's league next year. So lots of added baseball opportunities in 2026. Very cool.
Yeah.
John Alcamo. You got to unmute yourself, my friend.
Very
There you
good
go.
presentation. I was just wondering, the team, the Yankees had the AA team down in Trenton at the ballpark there. Is there anything going on right now with that? Last I heard, they were doing the draft picks.
No,
Were
it's
playing
MLB
down
Draft
there.
League.
Yeah.
MLB Draft League is playing there still. Yeah.
Oh,
Very
okay.
short season. But Ralph, do you know of anything else that's going on there?
Nothing specific. That was it.
Yeah, just that very short season draft league.
Yeah, that's what
and
I heard.
I believe last I saw, and I haven't followed up in the last couple of weeks, but when I was doing my work for Baseball Landmarks preseason, where we make sure that we've got everything updated with most recent names and all that stuff, that they lost their corporate sponsorship and it's no longer Arm & Hammer Park. It's just like Trenton Thunder Field or something like that.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Hmm.
All right, everybody, this has been a great one. I just want to remind you that we've got another couple of great ones coming up. On Wednesday, April 23rd, the great Jerry Eisenberg is going to be with us. That's a joint meeting of the Elysian Fields chapter and the Goose Goslin chapter. Jerry Eisenberg was the winner of the joint chapter's 2025 Russell Gabay Award. Jerry was absolutely thrilled to be the recipient, and he is going to be on with us for what potentially could be a really long and joyous meeting. He was on a couple of months ago with the New York Giants Preservation Society, and he went nonstop for an hour and a half, and we were all sitting there just absolutely mesmerized. So be prepared for what might be a long one, but I promise you will not be bored. Then the following week on Tuesday, April 29th, we are doing we're hosting at his request, Mark Evans. Mark is the filmmaker behind The Diamond King, which is a wonderful biopic about the amazing Dick Perez, baseball's Picasso. That movie starts streaming. It's making its streaming debut on April 25th on Amazon, Google, and Apple. And Mark very graciously has offered that there will be a special giveaway to anybody who rents the movie or buys the movie in that first week. And then there's also going to be an opportunity to win something if you buy the movie. So one guaranteed giveaway for everybody who rents or buys, and then a second chance at a giveaway, all sponsored by Mark and Dick Perez, for anybody who buys. I will have the details on all that shortly, and I will announce what those giveaways will be. That's going to be a great discussion as well. If you haven't seen anything about the movie, the trailer dropped maybe about a week and a half ago. I will include the link to it in the next announcement about that meeting. So put those both on your calendar. We've got a lot of other stuff coming up too. And as always, if you have any suggestions about guests, or if there's anything I can do to help make your SABR membership as valuable to you as it can be, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Ralph, thank you for a wonderful evening. Have a wonderful
everybody.
night, everybody, and take care.